The following episode may contain spoilers for the game Frosthaven.
Welcome to episode 13 of our board game podcast, A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I'm your host, Eddie, and joining me as always, a man who a while back was peckish. And when I asked, do you want cheese and bacon flavor? He said, yeah, with great enthusiasm. And when I followed up with, it's Arnott's shapes though, his response was a rather disappointed, oh. Guys! Say hi, guys.
Hi guys. Well, because cheese and bacon shapes are terrible. Like, there's like 3 good flavors of shapes, and yet they continually try to bring out more flavors that are all mediocre. They've absolutely nailed the recipe of mediocre flavored chips, or biscuits, whatever. What are they? Chips or biscuits? They're not chips.
Well, that also depends where you come from, because here, we call it one thing, and I was doing some research into our listeners, just to get a bit of an idea, a bit more of a snapshot of where everyone was located, and over 50% of our listeners are from the United States, right? So they would call that maybe different. And I actually checked to see if Arnott's shapes were even available in America, and they're not.
Nah,
there's an Australian store.
Yeah, when I lived overseas, I remember that was a thing. There was that, and Tim Tams were some of the things you just couldn't get in other countries. So
yeah, they have a Aussie things online grocer or something like that. I'm not too sure. I found it when I was doing this really important research, and they had barbecue shapes and they had pizza shapes, and they were like $6.97 or something like that American dollars for a buck.
That's real expensive.
It's really expensive.
I mean, at least they had pizza shapes, which are the good ones. That's it. If they'd only had cheese and bacon flavor, and that's what we were exporting, kind of like Foster's, right? That's what we're sending out. Then I'd be a bit disappointed in Arnott's.
Yeah. So on that note, just doing a little bit of I don't know, research essentially on just a quick thing. I am a little unwell at the moment, and my voice may crack here and there, and I may cough and all of that, but I'm very determined to get this episode out and not delay it by a week, because it will screw everything up. So apologies if I sound a little bit snuffly, but I will do my best to pull this through.
Meanwhile, my goal is to try to make Daddy laugh heaps, because when you're really sick and then you laugh and you get that coughing fit that just doesn't go away, that's kind of my goal. So I'm trying to sabotage the podcast, but through humor.
Yeah, well, when you get funny, let me know. Okay. So
it's already starting. He's starting to laugh.
I'm making myself laugh. So we're looking into. I'm really, really proud of where MDET's come, because we're episode 13 in, but I was looking into where we've kind of reached around the world, and like I said, over 50% of our listeners are based in the United States, which is really, really cool. Hope they can kind of understand us. 17% are Australian, and you mentioned to me that a fellow Australian happened to discover it. You want to tell that one?
Yeah, so shout out to Matt and Mike, the 2 people who I know in real life, who are playing Frosthaven and just accidentally stumbled onto the podcast. Who, when we did the interview episode and I started and talked about playing Destiny, I think I got a message from Matt the other day, and he said, I kind of thought it was you. And then when you were talking about that, I was like, yeah, that's 100% him. So, shout out to Matt. And it's really cool just, organically having people find the podcast, because we haven't really told many people or done a lot, because it's a podcast is a niche thing, board games are niche, and then Frosthaven is super niche. So it's almost awkward when you tell people that you're doing a podcast, like, oh, wow, on what? And you're like, it's this really niche hobby that you probably have never heard of, and I don't really want to explain it, so I'm just not going to mention that I'm doing it.
Yeah, I told Mum, and she listens to it every episode that comes out only to hear my voice. As weird as that is, it's kind of stuffy, but she's like, oh, it's just nice because I don't hear from you a lot, so when I go for my morning walk, I get to hear your voice, and it's really nice. And I'm like, oh, okay, just make me sound like a dick then. But remaining percentages make up. Oh, we have a lot of Canadians that listen to us. We've reached the United Kingdom, Denmark, Sweden, New Zealand, our wonderful neighbors, the Netherlands, Norway, and Cyprus. And that surprised me actually. Cyprus, I didn't expect to hit there. To reach that part of all these different parts of the world, and that's rounding out our top 10. But then, we even have reached some areas like Singapore and India, Japan and Hong Kong. And we even have a listener in Egypt. So it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing what a fun, hobby platform can kind of do. And if you can reach a whole bunch of people who enjoy your content, it's pretty amazing. And I'm pretty stoked at how that's gone.
Yeah. So if you're listening in one of those countries, which I assume Daddy has reeled off all of them, hope he didn't forget anyone, and
okay.
Reach out and have a chat with us, because we're, one of the things that's been really cool over the last few weeks is having people message us, about the game or about what we're doing, and it kind of just gives us a bit more energy to do more of it, but also gives us some stuff to talk about, because we know that we want to craft it slightly towards the people who are interested and listening, so that you can be part of the whole process as well, because it kind of came out of when we played Gloomhaven. It was just the four of us. So if you're playing Frosthaven outside of your group, you don't have many people to talk about it. You can kind of share your experiences with, I don't know, almost the broader community playing the game without having to post on Reddit and probably get flamed for asking a question.
It's
or
funny
thinking.
You say this, because actually we've been contacted. We actually received 2 emails.
Oh no! What do we do wrong?
Nothing wrong, but basically we got a person called Beck who emailed us, and they wrote, "Hi, you haven't seen any of these yet. Hi, Daddy and Gaz. Loving the podcast as my daily driver to begin the work week for my Monday commute. My group is made up of 3 players. One who owns the game and is playing as a Blink Blade, myself as the Deathwalker, and our other friend who is playing the Bannerspear. I know you don't play 2 of our characters, but my question is not related to the characters. It's been a fairly enjoyable experience, and we're about 6 scenarios in. I'm finding that the game owner is playing a lot more for themselves, with a lot of their decision making, whether it be not contributing as much when it comes to collective payment or building buildings, and seems to be more in it for themselves. I enjoy playing with the group, and the person is a really good friend of mine, but how do you advise I bring this up with them? I feel it's ruining the enjoyment, as they seem to have a me mentality. Keep up the great work."
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we can kind of channel our inner Dr. Phil here, right? And answer questions live on radio.
Yeah, well, it's kind of reminiscent of when someone, I guess, experienced vents to a Reddit group or BGG or something like that, and you see a lot of these sort of questions regarding game group situations, whether it be competitive or cooperative, whether it be quarterbacking or all sorts of stuff. It's consistent, and a lot of the times the general consensus is people will want you to be able to talk to them, right? It's all about communication and being open. And I get that's quite difficult, but the person may not be aware, right, that they're making it less enjoyable.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, it's without going too deep into it, I think that there's kind of 2 real quick things I'd mention on. Most of the time, whenever I hear from a board game, also role-playing games, it's something that, being part of different communities and forums I read about, when people have X person is doing Y and it's kind of making the game not as fun for other people, they're a good friend, etc., etc. What do I do? It's almost like you always have to just talk to the person. Like, it's 100% always do it. You can't manipulate something in the game and do it that way, because it doesn't let them be aware of the situation, so they're not going to change their behavior. And the other side of things is, this is kind of not from a joke perspective, but I did joke about it when we were doing a variance part of I wanted to really see a group of people who all hated each other and didn't want to play with each other play Frosthaven, just to see how they would go about it and how many times they had to redo. Now, I'm not saying that this person who's written in hate each other. They've actually said they're good friends. So that's great that you can kind of keep playing. But yeah, that little bit of kind of competitiveness in the game, I think, is an interesting component to it, as long as it doesn't make the game worse for your play style. And that's the only thing I've always kind of seen, both with Gloomhaven and Frosthaven, because they share a lot of those competitive elements. It's just, is this going to make the group not play as well? Because that can make the game less fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, it sounds like the game owner, right? That adds in a little element of pressure to it because it's not your game, right? It's someone else's game, so that can sometimes feel a little bit like, well, I'm not in the right position to actually, make a point like here or there. But I can guarantee you, the person who is running the game, one of the biggest problems with a lot of people who own a lot of board games is they run out of people to play them with, or they can't, get the groups to actually play them with. And I guarantee there's nothing worse than knowing that they're making it, less enjoyable for people around them when it's already so difficult to find people to play these games with. So again, like Gaz says, I think, yeah, if you let them know, they will do whatever it is to make sure that the group is, to correct behavior and just say, oh, I had no idea. Because if they're not aware of it, they're not going to make the change. Yeah. So it just needs to be brought in gently. Just, hey, this is how it's making me feel.
Yep, that's it. Right. Or unless it's not that big a deal, in which case then just live with it, right? And hope that it fixes itself. But I mean, that's kind of the head in the sand.
Oh, just all of you do the me mentality, and then Gaz gets his variant. So
yeah, exactly. And then tell me about how it goes. And I think we've had a really good dynamic in our group in that it's almost the opposite. Like no one wants to take more. If it's like, hey, here we need to spend 5 gold, it's like, oh, I'll give 5, I'll give 5, I'll give 5. I'm like, wow, slow down, everyone. It's only 5. We don't need 20 gold here. So that's been really good. But I know that if you, as the game owner and host, it kind of was like, oh no, I want to do this and I want to do that. I feel like, there could be a little bit of pressure, although I've known you for so long that if it got too much, I'd just be like, what are you doing? So, yeah. And that's where that goes. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny because the second one was a shorter email. This guy called Roger M. Hi, guys. With decision-making situations such as which scenario to play and also road and outpost event choices, how do you resolve them? Especially if you want to choose or do different things. Enjoying the podcast and thanks for the occasional laughs. And that's exactly kind of what you're like laying down, where if an event comes up, we spend a lot of time looking at each other kind of blankly, like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Like, how do we want to resolve this? There's no there's no one in here that's just going straight up, this is exactly what I want to do. Unless it feels like it's a good and evil kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think unless somebody speaks up really quickly and then it's usually like, well, you seem pretty passionate about that. Sure, let's go with that. Nobody really cares. I think it has been a lot more of like, someone make a decision. I feel like we're all sitting around trying to figure out which takeaway we're having for dinner, and nobody wants to make the decision for everyone else. So and
we have
I feel
the opposite problem.
Exactly. Our group tends to err on the side of of being good. So if we can't make a decision, we usually just default to the good decision. And then again, without spoiling, it's the one time we decided not to do that. We clearly got screwed by it, and we told the 2 people who were being greedy that we should have been good heroes. So, just before we move on, one thing with that last comment that you read out, I think is probably the bigger issue that we need to address is that I think in the message you said, they're enjoying the occasional laughs. I feel like that's some feedback that's just been hidden in there to make sure that we find it. We've got to ramp it up. Like occasionals, not where I'm at. I want to be consistent at least.
No, I laugh a lot. I have to mute my laughs half the time.
Well, maybe we just need to be funnier.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of us needs to.
Oh, okay. I'll step up my game then.
Anyway, so this week on Amdirt, we are actually talking and covering scenario 21, the Realm of Endless Frost, which was the event that we wanted to do last week. And we didn't. We had 3 people last week, but Calvin, our Bone Shaper, did come back for this particular one. And we went to Boss Town, which is super exciting. We hadn't sunk our teeth into a boss, so we got to finally do that. We complete another outpost event, and we'll have a little chat about the scenario because it was a fairly good one.
Yeah, definitely was really keen for this, and definitely felt like this scenario delivered what I was hoping for.
So we made our way to the cold part of Frosthaven, the game, and there was lots of snow and cold things, and we came across a road event. this is the part where I say, Gaz, do you remember what our road event was?
100%. What? How could I not forget this really memorable road event where there was important decisions to be made, and
Okay,
we
you
made
don't.
them. And
No,
can you give me a
okay.
hint? Give me a hint.
Yeah.
Pretend I'm someone who didn't remember what the road
I
event
do this
was. What
every
would be a
week.
hint?
I
What
do
would
this
be a
every
hint that
week.
you give me? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was money was exchanged
For goods or services.
No. We met a person and they were like, "Would you like to, in a way, donate?"
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was really cool. Yep. No, I like that. And I think this is an example of it. Like, we were all pretty unanimous on like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Because interestingly, and this has been the case with a couple of them, which has been cool because I don't think this happened at all in Gloomhaven. The events have almost individual chances to make choices, which this was one of them. You could collectively as a group choose A or B, and then if you chose A, then each of people could do a thing.
Chose more A,
yeah,
and do this, and people who chose less A can do this.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and I think it's happened as well, and previously with like shop ones that have come up, where there's been a person being like, "Hey, do you want to do a thing? You can buy some stuff." So I think it's really cool. It's added an extra little flavor to those, where you can all agree to do a thing, but then you could just not contribute if you wanted to, and the outcome gets impacted by it as well, which has been good.
Yeah. So positive one. I enjoyed that one. It felt very clean, so that was good. So after we finished doing that, we did some hiking in the snow, wonderful snow.
No, sledding. We needed a sled.
We did need a sled, but it only fit one person, so everyone was walking except me. And I was like, "Yay, this is great!" And then I fell into a hole, and then everyone fell into a hole as well. And then it was like,
led us straight into a hole.
Yes, and we
you
fell
had one
straight...
job on the sled. One job.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have enough dogs. Hounds,
wolves.
We fell straight into scenario 21. And when it came to setting up this particular scenario, the main tile, if you've played this one before, I'm going to call it the ship tile because it looks like a ship. It looks like a bit of a boat because it's kind of like rectangular, but then it kind of tapers off a little bit. And I'm seeing it a lot lately. So we set up that tile. And on the actual tile itself, we had a door and we had frost demons. Have we seen frost demons yet? I know they're in Gloomhaven, and we're starting to see more of the elemental demons. We had wind, we've had earth. I don't think we've seen the frost ones yet, have we?
I thought maybe did we see them when we went to fight robots, but didn't get to fight robots?
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah,
because I feel like they came up, and I was just like, oh yeah, these guys again.
Yeah, okay.
Because they're just the big tanky dudes that retaliate.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
and they hit hard, as I learned.
Yeah, they're annoying.
So we had a couple of those in the room, and we also had living spirits. All right, our old friend Shield and McShield, low health, living spirits. And then we got smacked in the face with our scenario goal, which was the scenario is complete when the Prince of Frost is dead. And that sounds like our boss. And we can't see him yet. But that sounds like the boss guy.
So we're using that narrator app. Is it Fortella?
Yes.
Hey, look, see, I'm remembering the names of things. And
good.
when it reads it out, like all of the scenarios have been. So again, another big tick for Fortella and the voice acting is as soon as the voice acting kind of kicked in for this Prince thing, which we assumed was like it was kind of this leaders follow me, go this way, and as it continued through, it was like I definitely feel like the scenario objective is to kill this idiot.
He was kind of irritating. If like anyone who's played this scenario and used Fortella, it was so well done. Like the narration and the voices and the sound effects, every single time it knocks it out. But whoever's the voice actor of this, he did such a good job because I hate you. Like of this guy. He's so annoying.
Yep. So it was definitely kill that dude, and we all agreed.
So we set up and we were good to go. objectively, we kind of looked at the plan of the room, and we had the frost demons, and we had a couple of living spirits. Phil and I did our regular prep round, and our Bone Shaper and our Geminate did something they've never done before.
Yeah, I felt like I felt like we were like Voltron. Like
Yeah.
two parts of Voltron, like the legs connected, right? It wasn't the full Voltron. It was just like, oh yeah, now you're like a little bit more powerful because you work together.
Yeah,
And
well, it wasn't even planned. It just kind of happened.
yeah, 100%. I didn't even know that Kelvin had that card, and it just worked. So my plan was they were close enough that I could jump right in there and do my retaliate thing. And because there's like 5 or 6 monsters there, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get absolutely smacked around here, but I'm gonna get so much XP. And because the spirits only have like 3 or 4 HP, I think it is, depending, they just have more shields. With my retaliate thing, I can actually kill them because I end up with a range retaliate of 3. So, but Calvin's card would give an ally shield 1 and retaliate 1, and I believe if he gets to eat dark, I think it is, or leaves, or one of the elements, he can bump up that retaliate. So it ended up being really high. I had like range retaliate of 3 and then a melee retaliate of 5. So I think I killed a bunch of the spirits, and then a couple of the big frost demons smacked me and actually took a chunk of damage as well. So, but I managed to survive that pretty well, realistically. Although I think I needed a lot of heals afterwards, so I don't know if that means
You definitely
I did well.
did. You definitely did, because in the same round, I've noted here that Calvin somehow got 4 XP in the first round, which was really, really good and really standard. So for his first action, he's going to gain 4 XP or something like that. We all went, oh yeah, of course. But it was immediately after that the unexpected new healer of the group topped you up.
Yeah, that's right.
And Phil, with just this giant, his massive 5 heal that he does out, like, it's not even an action, right? And he just does it.
Yeah, so he has a item that heals me or heals me. It usually lands on me. Heals someone for 5, but it poisons them. So it works really well because I've got the little amulet that you can tick off, like heal yourself for 1. And so we've worked that kind of well in a round where I'm going to jump in and take a bunch of damage. I can then just get myself unpoisoned, so it doesn't really impact me.
That's right. I ran in with Crushing Weight, doing my things. I had 1 turn. I've noted here, turn 3, I wind up for fat hit with an attack of 7. So this would have been including my dagger and maybe a poison. And Crushing Weight with the 4 attack or something like that on a Frost Demon. It was my job to kill it because it was within the health threshold of what I needed. And I pulled a -2, which is kind of like my miss almost, because I mean, we were talking about perks a while back, and when I was talking about what perk I haven't taken yet, Gaz specifically said, oh no, you need to get rid of that -2. Get rid of my -2 and add a +0. And I was like, nah, I'm never really going to see it that often. I saw it then and there, which meant I didn't kill it, which meant Retaliate hit me for 2, and then it had his turn because it wasn't dead, and he hit me for 8. And just like that little decision I made caused me to lose that much health. And it was very noteworthy.
It's even stands out even more when you draw the -2 because it's the only -2 in your deck. So anytime it comes up, it's literally like that one card. That card would not be there. In your defense, though, the perk you chose was Ignore Scenario FX.
Yeah.
Finally, after 5 levels. And this scenario had some pretty nasty ones. So you did choose
everyone
correctly.
Everyone get muddle and discard 2 cards. Like, it was pretty gross, and we all got to ignore that now. So yes,
It worked well, but that -2 is just like a giant red beacon. Anytime it pops up, it's like, hey, remember me? You didn't get rid of me. I'm still here.
In that scenario, it was -2 and take 10 damage, basically.
Yeah, that's it.
Which makes it a lot worse.
Yeah.
So turn 4, by that stage we had managed to dispatch a lot of the mobs in the room. Nothing crazy of note. Phil was definitely doing a lot of damage, as he's known to do. And he went and opened the door. Shall I open the door, guys? I'll open the door. He went and opened the door. And then I got to setting up the next tile, only to realize the special rules were we all get vacuumed into that room. Very unexpected. So the setup of the second room is fairly large room. We throw 3 living bones. Living bones we don't see very often, but they were the staple, the poster child of Gloomhaven, and it's kind of cool to see them again. And we see this big glowing orb in the room, and we all spawn on one side of it. And the cool thing is, the shadows that Phil had already put up get to come in, and everything, it's good to go. Bad thing is, they all get to act right on that particular turn. And the new scenario rules for that particular room was we needed to destroy this orb. Now, every time the orb takes damage, any kind of damage, it basically does an AoE damage to the whole room. Everything in the room takes 2 damage, including the enemies, the enemy creatures. And the door, and every turn, 2 new living bones will spawn at the corners of the room, elite ones, and the door will only be unlocked once the orb has been destroyed.
Yeah, and we managed to without trying, which is the amazing thing here, right? Like, it's always great when you don't try and things line up perfectly, to basically organize the worst possible combination of initiatives, events, and cards to make this room really hard. So we came in on no life. Right, the last action was to open the door of all of our actions. So we kind of came in, which meant that all of the living bones got to act, right, before any of us got to have a go. And then, because it was the end of the round, we got 2 new living bones. So we basically had, instead of the 3 that start there, we basically started the round with 5 elite living bones, and all being on really low life and going like, this is going to be bad.
Super bad. And the next round, half of us needed to rest. Like, we were planning on maybe doing a rest, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because you don't expect it's like, and look, that's a really cool thing to just chuck in there, opening a door and getting sucked through, because
Definitely.
you're right. Because normally, there's not normally, but sometimes you have extra movement. So I'm going to run up, open the door, and run back and just pull back a little bit. We can all do a little rest, and we evaluate the room and work it out. But again, it had the time. Like, hey, you just can't sit there and look at these, because they're going to spawn heaps. You got to kill this orb. But B, we're all just right up in there. And I mean, perfect combination of mobs, because living bones attack multiple targets, right?
Yeah.
So on that turn, they all just walked up and went like, "Oh, well, this is perfect. Thanks for lining up in a row, guys. Like, we're just gonna just carve you up," and that's what they did.
Yeah, and not traditionally we open a door. We want to. Someone opens the door, maybe baits the next room into the previous room. People get to do their rests, take their time and all that. No, so we had to hit this orb, but we're already on low health. So then we had to kind of get our heal up and also dispatch some of the, there was so much going through our mind. It was very, very cool the way it kind of threw, not just here's a bunch of mobs as a hallway to get to the next room. It was a whole situation, a whole puzzle in itself of how we were going to tackle this current situation. But it wasn't, and it felt like a timer was thrown at us. Not a timer in terms of time, but in terms of rounds. Because we weren't going to be able to sit there and take our time, weaving through it. So I happened to strap on. By this stage, I decided to strap on my shield 2. Bottom action, which is one of my newer cards. I think it's level 5, and my goal was to jump into between the areas of where the skeletons were kind of spawning and try and taunt those skeletons to me and try and outlast that, while someone else tried to get some heals going, and Phil most likely is going to be the one to damage the orb. And we had to be really careful in this room because Calvin has summons, and if the summons don't have anything else to attack, they're going to go for that orb, and they're going to do little stabby damage to it, which means everything's going to cop the 2 damage over and over again. So we had to be really mindful of how they were going to get used. Calvin did lay, before I went, actually, one of his fat heals. He got the big one, which is essentially a lost card, but it's essentially a reset heal because it resets all of us. And that was his moment to shine. He threw the card down, and we all basically healed up a big chunk before I flew myself to the back. Phil started doing big damage on the orb. And I think there was one more skeleton that, my shield 2 disappeared because of everything.
That's what I remember. Yeah, I remember you said that. You put it down and you were tanking great, and you're like, "Oh, well, there it goes."
Yeah.
You're like, "Oh, okay. Well, that's..."
Yeah. And actually, it was at this stage I actually lost the card. just because I was just taking too much. So it was bad.
It was a really challenging room, and I feel like because this is a boss level, this is probably why the difficulties ramped up a lot on it. But this is a type of room that is probably the last room in a normal scenario. Maybe a bit bigger with a few extra mobs, but that's the kind of what it felt like. It felt like a end of scenario type room where, hey, you're going to get swarmed and you're going to need to beat this thing down with heaps of life, but it's going to kind of use it. Yeah, you got to balance your health, your damage, and all those kind of things. So it was very. I didn't expect it, very unexpected, to be in the second room of a scenario.
Yeah,
and it drained the crap out of us.
But the voice from the little dude that was luring us in here was acting all like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that room. Don't worry about. Oh, sorry about all this."
Yeah.
It was making it worse, and it also, because you mentioned that, made me think, well, if this is the second room, what's the rest of this place going to look like? Because it's
100%.
Normally the last room.
Yeah, well, this room made me think that there was one more room, right? Like, oh, okay, we're going to get to the next room, and the next room's going to have the boss in it, right? And so when we eventually killed the orb, which we killed the orb, and the skeletons that were in there might have been 3 or 4 of them that were in there, dropped really low because they obviously take to 2 damage, and we'd been doing a little bit of damage. The door opens up, and it's the junk room, which... this little prince dude's just like, oh, hey, sorry about that. Hey, do you mind cleaning up on your way through? And it's like, oh, you are going to die. Like, we are going to get you. It was like, oh, okay. And then there's another living bones in there that just zooms in, and a bunch of spirits. It's like, wow, we don't have any, like, that room drained us heaps. And now we're still dealing with those bones. They still managed to do a bunch of damage to us. And we've got we know we at least have one more room after this. So it's like, oh God, like we're starting to feel it by then. We're starting to feel going like 2 more rooms, really? Okay, all right, let's see what we can do.
Well, looking at the things that I had put through, by this stage I had lost 2 cards due to negating damage. Calvin had lost 1, you had lost 1, and Phil had lost 2. Now, one of Phil's actually might have been towards the end, but he had lost at least 1. So it's very uncommon for all of us to be losing that much health to the point where we're having to lose cards as a result. So that adds to that timer quite dramatically. And like you said, there was a room there, the spirits come out, we had to deal with them. But not just that, the room has special rules in that when I was setting this room up, I looked at it and I was just like, what the hell? And all I saw was crap everywhere. And I literally had to go digging for all of the shelves and bookshelves and crates and all of that, and covered nearly every tile with something. And when everyone was like, well, what is all that? I'm like, no, it's literally junk. It's literally, this guy's just got a really, really messy room. And there's no real clean way to get through this other than maybe some really good jumps, which I hope the hell everyone has, which I don't know if everyone has. I'm pretty sure everyone did except Calvin, the guy with all the pets. So... They all have health as well, so you can actually damage them. But yeah, it was a mess. There's traps in there as well, and then of course there's the chest. And we're all down on cards. We're not sure how much further we have to go. We have to bust through these living spirits, and then make our way through the last door. And the last door was just, you had to open it. Like, it wasn't locked or anything like that.
It's a regular door, which was different from all the other rooms.
Yeah. So it was. I don't know, around this time, it was the setup. Anytime there's a big door, the 3 of us kind of stop, look at each other, and go, well, who's opening it? And there was one. Now, it looks like the miniature or the kit looks like a table, but then in the app we're using, label everything as either shelves or crates. So we were calling it a bookshelf. It's a 2-tile bookshelf that is right across the door, and on the other side of it is a trap. And we were planning on, Gaz and I were planning on removing it. It's going to go 5 health. Just destroy this bookshelf. And then, Calvin and other people can get through instead of walking through the trap. And Gaz tried to hit it. I think he did 2 damage or something?
Yeah, something like that. No. I jumped in and I did an AoE attack to hit 3 different things. And I kept drawing -1s because I was only doing 1 damage. So I did like 1 -1 to like 3 different objects.
Okay. And then I pulled an attack with Crushing Weight. and I missed.
Yep, yep. So this bookcase slash table is being elevated to join its friend of the log in our objects and miscellaneous items on the board that cause us trouble. So anyone who's been listening from the start, remember that there was the log of doom, which we all thought was an obstacle, but actually was difficult terrain. And now we'll forever remember the bookcase boss that
He couldn't die.
like it was this invincible.
He couldn't die.
Just yep. So it made it very difficult. I think you ended up running through the trap.
I did. I chose the trap. Straight after I missed, I was like, no, I'm taking the trap. I'm not going to sit here and waste cards trying to deal with this. I hope that when I retire the Drifter, I unlock Bookshelf and I become the Bookshelf character. And I get to run around as a bookshelf that never dies because this thing just did not die.
No, it was just it was very, very well placed by whoever didn't want us getting through that door.
So I went through the trap, we opened the door, and in there we had another 3 Frost Demons, and I finally got to put up a boss standee, which is really, really cool. And this was the Frost Prince. And he had 2 cards, so either special, every boss has special 1 and special 2. And one of the specials was very interesting to see. It was actually, you get to draw a card from your lost pile, or retrieve a card from your lost pile, which was completely unheard of.
Yep, and heal everyone for 4.
Yes,
and summon your mate.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he's got the special 1 and special 2, and one of them is literally like, as Gaz said, one character gets to retrieve a lost card. Doesn't specify which one. I think we had to choose. Email me if I got that wrong, and it was like no one gets to choose. It's just randomized. Everyone fans their hands out and just takes one out of a discard.
One. Yep.
Heal 4 at a range 2, targeting 2 at range 5, and summon a snow imp. Can you believe it?
Yeah, no. After everything we were going through, and we're like, let's just get away from these snow imps. We won't fight snow imps. It's living bones. It's frost demons. It's living spirits. Okay, I think we're clear because they wouldn't add snow imps to this one. And like, here's this prince guy just chilling. We're like, oh, okay, cool. Yes, no snow imps. And then he's like, yeah, nah, jokes. I can summon snow imps.
I know, literally, like the worst creature. We're finally away from it. And this guy who has the most irritating voice in all of Fortella history, that we have to follow through this horrendous scenario in terms of its just layout and how much it's owning us. Right at the very end, summon snow imps as his special. Not just one of his specials, both of his specials. It's like, I do this, and summon snow imp.
Summon snow imp, yep. So
we go into the room, and every single room we go into, it's almost like we have to decide how we're going to deal with this. By this stage, I think Calvin died back in Orb Room, and his summons were not going to make it anywhere through that clutter room. So it was kind of the 3 of us in that room, and we had made a decision to probably start dealing with the Frost Demons. There was kind of a look to feel to maybe go and try and smash the boss up. Oh, who had 72 health, because we're now doing this at scenario 3 difficulty.
That was the thing. Yeah, from opening the door, seeing the 3 Frost Demons, going like, okay, we can probably burn them down. Here's the boss. Oh, 72 health. And we did that rough counting of like, how many turns have you got left alive? Maybe with a couple of long rests, like 4. So, and that was kind of where we were at. We're like, this is going to be really, really tough. But when we saw the card of return a lost card, we're like, oh, do we have a chance? Do we have a chance? And as you said, we kind of evaluated, and what are we doing? It's like, we've just got to burn those Frost Demons, which we did. We dropped them really quickly, managed to get them out of the way, and went, okay, hang on. This might be doable. There's only, I think at that stage might be 1 snow imp by that stage. And we went, okay, let's go. But then we started wailing on him and going like, it's 72. Like, I think I made the comment of like, when we finish a scenario, our average damage on our DPS meter sits around 40 to 50, right, per character. And that's usually maybe with a peak of 60. I'm like, this is literally going to be like 2 characters worth of damage for a whole scenario that we now have to do with no cards left in the last room.
And the boss had Retaliate too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So we have no life, no cards. He's got 72 life. And and I'm looking at some of my cards, and like, I'm like, that are okay. And they're like, one of my burn cards that I got from like level 3 or 4 is attack 4, attack 3, attack 2. I'm like, oh, that's terrible. I'm going to kill myself. Right? Like that's a high damage card.
Takes 6
it's also
damage.
it's basically also reads you take 6 damage after this. And not it's worse than 6 damage, because 6 damage I could burn a card to remove it. I'd have to like, so it's just that's it. I do forget about the retaliate.
So snow imps were spawning as well, and the snow imps, the first things they tend to do is like strap a shield on and heal themselves, even though they don't need it. And we're trying to work out, like, by this stage, I'm down to like next to no cards. I have 1 or 2 good attacks in me. That's it. I don't know how much the other 2 had. They were prepping and setting up, but the snow imps went and they had a turn, and then I went and hit the boss, right? And I landed a really, really fat turn, because rarely, I pulled my crit. I pulled my ×2, and I was so happy. Arms and up. Oh my god, a lot of damage. Only to realize that I got muddled in the same turn because of the snow imps. Snow imps did their strengthen everyone and muddle everyone within a certain amount of range, and I'd forgotten about it. So of course I pulled the crit, and for some reason there was a little voice in my head that was literally saying, "You didn't." Right? It's there, but you kind of didn't. There's something missing. And I looked over at the screen, and sure enough, there was a big question mark on it. And I was like, there it is. There it is. And got to pull the second card, which was something terrible, and didn't get to do it. Turn 17, I died. Turn 17, I exhausted. And then there were 2, Geminate and Deathwalker. Sorry, I don't know what took so long.
That's it. And one of the problems with being with the Geminate and a character like a boss with heaps of health and me needing to do heaps of damage to it is that my heaps of damage cards are burn cards. So when I'm sitting on like 3 or 4 cards, I'm like, okay, I can't do this. Like I guess I do a little bit of damage, because if I burn this card, then I just exhaust. Because I've got to juggle this whole thing as well with the different forms. So it's really tricky, because when people are like, oh, how many cards have you got left? How many turns? I go, well, I have 5 cards, but 2 of them are for range and 3 of them are for melee.
That's a straightforward question, guys.
It's not a straightforward question. It's like, hang on. No. It's like, how do you play chess? Did you mean 4D chess while you're juggling chainsaws? No, I just regular chess. No, there's no regular chess. So it is a little bit trickier, because I've got to look and go, well, if I burn a card from one of my particular forms, I may not be able to switch back in or even use the other remaining card in that. So sometimes it can be even less. And that's where I think I got to. I was like, because his other special, which we didn't talk about, was 1 player loses the card. So yes. There was a few times where I was just like, I'll just do it, because I have this card that I just literally cannot play, because I can't turn in. If I turn into that form, I exhaust. So it was like, yeah, well, I guess it's good. I have a spare card that I can just throw away. But on the same time, and looking at those cards, going like, oh, that could be a lot of damage if I could somehow pull it off. So,
but lucky, because the 2 of you pulled it off, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, we did not.
We failed.
We failed
wiped
miserably.
So we lasted 19 rounds, which is a lot.
A lot of rounds,
I don't think we've ever gone that long.
Well, me and Phil managed to survive an extra couple after you died, just through, because he kept. This is the I guess the double-bladed sword, the whatever the analogy is. The I don't know, catch-22. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the bad thing that happens when we thought it was good was that he's drawing this card that gives us a card back. We're like, yes, this is great. Okay, we get a card back. It refills us. We'll get a really big damage card. But that card also meant he summoned a snow imp and healed himself for 4. So basically, every card that he was getting back, even if we did 5 or 6 damage, we were really only doing 2. And he was getting a snow imp. So even then, we saw this like, yeah, we're staying alive for a bit, we're getting these cards, but now we weren't. Like, we were really not making that much of a dent.
Yeah. So yeah, we failed.
And then we packed up Frosthaven and we're not playing it anymore because we're failures. So that's the end of the podcast.
So we're now an intrepid podcast.
Yeah. Little in-joke there that no one will get, but it's hilarious. Trust me, just laugh.
Just a bad game. So we then were talking. We had time, right? This was on public holiday. Yeah, that's right. It was public holiday. Wait,
It's
was it?
funny. Anybody non-Australian listening to this be like, so you guys just get a public holiday every week, right? Is that how this works? Because you just keep playing these on public holidays.
Yeah,
So yeah,
we're pretty lazy.
there's a space between like March and the end of April where we do get heaps of public holidays, but then we have a bit of a drought for a bit. So
That's true. So yeah, we're playing on the Monday. We're playing during the daytime, which meant that we could fit in a second scenario. We were planning on going in the day with the second scenario, and I jokingly said, or we could just keep repeating the boss scenario over and over again because we're gonna fail it. Yeah, we failed it. So we were talking about what we were gonna do, and they were talking about, well, let's go somewhere else. And then they're like, what do you think, Daddy? And I was just like, I kind of want to go again. And then Phil was like, yeah, no, let's go again. I mean, it's already half set up, and everyone was in agreement. So we were like, let's run it back, and we did. And this is the second time we failed the priest one before, right? And this is the second scenario we've ever failed, and it does light a fire in me because I'm like, no, we have to do this. We have to complete this, and because it's so fresh, it's like you can sort of see all the mechanics of the scenario. You can plan around it, and you can go in with a much better plan. And I played with a couple of the cards. I changed some of the persistence. I was running around with the boots before, but I decided not to. I ran around with. I thought I'd bring my heal one instead. And we set up the first room, and in we went again. And pretty much the first room was almost exactly the same, with the exception of the spirits acted slightly differently, which meant your turn was not as good as it was the first time.
Yeah, that was annoying. They drew a ranged 4 attack, so 2 of them managed to outrange my retaliate. I was like, "Are you come on, really?" So, but I think in saying that, I think 2 more of the frost demons managed to move up and hit me. So I positioned myself. So I think I still hit 5 because I still remember getting 5 XP off it. But it meant that I think I only killed one of the spirits. Plus one of the elite ones got knocked down a bit, so it wasn't as effective, but we basically did the same thing.
Yeah, we did the same thing, but what we wanted to do was plan around when Phil was going to open that door, because we know he was going to go over and open the door, but we wanted to make sure that we all had our turn in a way, so that we would all be able to act on the round that the skeletons, we knew what was coming. And this is what's really cool. When we first played the scenario, it's so cool to go in there and have no idea what the rooms look like and what the enemy's going to be and what the scenario is going to look like. Going in there the second time, you kind of feel like you're going in there with wall hacks because you just know exactly what's going to come. And it's really fun to plan around once you do that the second time. Like,
it is, right? Because it does seem like it would be like just procedural in a sense. Like, like we're going through the motions, we know what's in there, we'll jump in here, we'll do these things, rah, rah, rah. But because it was such a hard room, right? We knew from the first time, you're almost going in, okay, how do we do this perfectly? And so the challenge then doesn't become, we know what's coming, so it'll be easy. The challenge becomes, we know how hard the rest of the scenario is and this room. How do we absolutely nail this so that we give ourselves the best chance? And so you almost get a high from kind of going like, we solved the puzzle ahead of time, we managed to do it.
Yeah, let's see how it plays out.
Wow, yeah. Well, it did play out really well for a bit, and then not so well for the rest of the bit.
Well, we started that second room with the orb, and this time we got a bit more of a jump on the situation. We were a lot healthier, so we could start whaling into that orb. We didn't have as many skeletons coming. It was cleaner, a lot cleaner. In fact, basically, if we could land some really fat attacks on the orb, we do 2 damage to everything, and essentially hitting the orb is great because it's like you take 2 damage, but you're dealing maybe 8 damage, right? 8 to 10 damage, depending on how many living bones are, as an AoE in the room as part of your attack. It's huge. So we go in there and we smash, and then we start to stabilize, and that was the plan. And that's exactly what we did. We went in there, we smash. The orb went down, and the skeletons were mid-range health, some a little bit low. For some reason, really hard to finish off. I don't know what happened.
We did it as well as we possibly could have done, jumping in there and killing that orb and managing to not take heaps of damage from the skeletons. But then the next 3 turns, We were burning cards. We were missing skeletons on one. Like I think there was so we had the hero skeleton on one life. We just couldn't kill him, and that just meant that all the monsters from the trash room came in. So we were still trying to deal with all these skeletons on low life, getting absolutely peppered by these long-ranged spirits that we couldn't just go over and insta-kill because they've got a whole bunch of shields. It was just became this mess, and I'm like, I thought we were doing amazingly, and we just like barely struggled through that, and it just kind of went like, oh, God, now we're kind of back to where we were.
Kind of. I remember one specific part where we can always see, everyone rolls their initiative or plays their initiative card and looks at the screen, and we all go, "What are they doing?" And we have a look. For some reason, we didn't, or it wasn't noted what they were doing. We had our turns, and when it got to them, one of them just walked up in between three of us in the back somewhere and had a hit on. It was like me, Calvin, and Phil, and we were all like, "Oh, where'd he come from?"
Yeah.
And yeah, he just got a massive, like, it was little things like that that just added up to the
Yeah.
point where, it just became really hard.
I think we got a little bit complacent when we did really well, and then we just started lining up for these skeletons just to just go, oh, I get to hit 3 people. Can you make sure you stand a little bit of a star so I can move in and just get? I'm trying to top my DPS meters, guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Look, we did manage to deal with most of the skeletons. I ran into the back and started, because I got like pretty guaranteed pierce, so I started dealing with some of the living spirits. Calvin had pulled back his summons, I believe, because he was actually in a much better spot than he was last time. He didn't lose anywhere near as much health, which is really, really cool. And I'm just looking at some of the damage taking. Yeah, we did lose cards. And then we were getting ready to run through that gauntlet of crap.
And take on the bookcase boss.
The bookcase boss, yeah. Well, the bookcase boss was at the back of the room, but we actually cleared a lot of furniture this time. Still couldn't clear bookcase boss. So I didn't either. I think I went for a hit and I couldn't. I was like, that's when I wrote it down. I was like, this bookcase is just effed up.
Yeah, book this.
There you go. Everyone, we all get one. And then, we were like, do we get the chest? Because there's chests in this room as well. And Phil was like, nah, don't worry about it. And then you were like, yeah. And then you went and got it. And I mean, why not, right?
Yeah, I think I was in a position where I needed to long rest the next turn anyway. So moving to there wasn't going to make a massive difference. So, but yeah, we kind of, we went through it. We got through it. We jumped over some things. We killed some other things and we opened up the room and got in there.
Yep. So we got ready to go into the room, and this time we had all 4 of us there. Even Calvin was there in the doorway, and he was trying to plan his summons because he could now start to summon his army. But I was like saying to him, just be careful, because where he's positioned right now, some of them are going to head back into the room to deal with some more of the furniture. And he was like, oh, so he used the commanding horn that he crafted to move it further into the room. And that was really, really helpful. So same as last time, dealing with the frost demons. And then the plan was, we talked about it, it was like, no, we have to deal with the boss. Do we deal with the snow imps? And then we talked about it and we just said, okay, little damage on the snow imps, or AoE spread damage, or cleave damage onto snow imps, but main big damage on the boss. And it worked a treat, because I think one of Phil's first attacks when the frost demons were dead was he dealt with the 2 imps that had spawned. Completely cleaned them up. I ran into melee range at the boss. Calvin had a skeleton in range as well. And the next thing you know, it was just the boss in the room. And all of a sudden, this became a lot easier. Now, at some stage, I can't remember, it might have been on the snow demons. The frost demons. I lost crushing weight. And that was going to be, like, I didn't have enough cards on me and enough things in me to move my tokens back. And I'd hit enough things, so I actually lost my crushing weight. So the guys were kind enough to allow me to take that out of my lost pile when the boss gave us a card back. And then unfortunately had to wait a turn to get it back on again, and then go into just unleash hell on boss. But our positioning and everything was really good, and we actually checked in. I'm waiting for a rules check here, but we actually checked that, with summoning, if you can't summon a space, if we could at least swarm him, he wouldn't be able to summon any more frost imps or snow imps. And it made sense because one of his attacks is pushing everyone away, right? Pushing everyone away and brittling everyone. So we just went with kind of brute force, and once we had no ads to deal with, we were just laying into this guy. And anytime a frost imp would spawn, like Cullen's pet would deal with it.
Yeah, well, I don't think we never got to the position where we could completely surround him, because I think when we almost got there, he did the push away one, everyone moved back. But what it did mean, because we surrounded him mostly, it was positioning the Frost imp away from everyone. And I think where it was appearing, it was only then attacking Calvin's skeleton. So it really wasn't interfering with us, but we were only getting one. Because once we were all up in his grill and there was one appearing, we could go, well, we can easily take care of that one. Right,
Yeah.
like this isn't going to get out of control because he can only summon one a turn. So it kind of became a great. We've just got to keep managing this because we know he's not going to pull out something ridiculous.
And the other thing was, I forgot to mention in the first run and this one, poison. Poison was huge on this guy because of that heal, that gain a lost card, heal myself for and everything around me. We always had a poison on him, and that made such a big difference with making sure that he was never getting topped up.
Yeah. So yeah, it did go a lot better, and I think we all had a lot more cards, and I managed to be in a position to sit back a little bit and use a lot of my big range cards. Actually managed to give myself strengthen or advantage in some way and pull a crit on my 100% chance to miss card that every other time I've ever used it always misses. I've managed to pull a crit on that one with advantage, which was
you had 14
really
damage.
Good.
That was a 14 damage.
Yeah, it was good. And I think even in part of that as well, I ate an element. That actually might be how I gave myself advantage. So yeah, it kind of all aligned quite well. And once we got up in there, it kind of looked like we would do it. And then Phil pulled a crit when it was on about 20 odd health, which did about 12 damage, I think it was.
It was 14 as well.
14, yeah, there you go. So we were kind of like, okay, I think we've got this, like maybe 2 turns, if he doesn't heal himself or do anything really silly. And then Phil's like, oh, this purple card that keeps coming up, is that good? Yeah, and it's just like, oh, okay, I guess 1 turn then. So it was quite good. And what was really funny though, and I know we'll talk about battle goals in a minute, but my battle goal was to be the first to exhaust. And I looked at my cards and I went, I've got like 3 cards left here. I don't want to exhaust now because I think it was when he was still on about 20, 25 life. I'm like, just in case, I don't want to exhaust and then lose. So I'll maneuver around to do a little bit more damage to him and I'll exhaust next turn when he's a bit lower. And it feels like, oh, there goes all his HP. And I'm like, no, damn it. Now I'm not going to be able to exhaust. So yeah, it was, he did drop at the end a little bit quicker than I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of a really good feeling when we're like, yes, I think we've got this.
It was when it was in the bag, we had 4 of us still there. It was good. It was definitely feeling good, especially after that first run and just coming together with a plan and watching it work and not seeing any shenanigans come out of it.
Because if we had failed that second time, then we would have packed up Frosthaven and never played again and then cancelled the podcast. So it was really good to end the night on a win and not walk away being pummeled twice by the same smug little prince dude.
Yeah. What was really cool actually was that this is one of the few instances where we're in the final room with the 4 of us. It doesn't happen too often. Carbon's Bone Shaper doesn't make it a lot of the times to the last room due to all the pets, but the way he played it this time was really, really good. And in fact, he in planning on just getting his slow butt through the room of debris in there so that he could start summoning his army, because just having them there was just making such a difference.
Yeah, I think it's something that we can have a look at a little bit more often and see how we can either maybe in some instances slow ourselves down a little bit so that he can catch up, because it made a massive difference, especially when we're low on cards, having him be able to have those summons up there to either take big hits from some of the monsters just to give us a bit of room, or just the constant damage that they do. So it might be something we need to do to just slightly adjust our playstyle so that he's able to make sure that he can kind of keep up and is there with us.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So battle goals. I forgot the name of it. Negate 5 or more damage by discarding a card. Very easy. Definitely got to do that because I took a lot of damage. And that was fantastic. Got myself a little tick there. Gaz had to exhaust before anyone else.
Did not exhaust. I could have exhausted before anyone else, but I chose not to.
Did no one exhaust?
Pardon?
Did no one exhaust?
No. No, we didn't.
Okay.
I was like I said, I was close. Like I could have burnt a card or two in the last turn and easily just died. But
The fact that you and Phil did 28 damage between you in the last round probably
yeah,
didn't help your battle goal, right?
yeah, that's it. It was like a well, okay, yeah, no, all right. But I was okay with that. It's because it was a big mission. So
That's true. Calvin had the finish on full health. He did not. But again, it would be that situation of, I'm just glad we finished it. There would be nothing worse than cooking the scenario because of a battle goal. I can't imagine. If you get to that stage where it's kind of like, oh, wow, we failed. And someone's like, oh, don't do damage to a boss or something stupid like that. And you're like, are you kidding me?
yeah,
And then Phil had to kill a creature and open a door on the same turn, which he managed to do in that first room, which was really, really, really cool. So good on you, Phil. We have two lots of damage meters. I'm not really going to read the first one out, although maybe a couple of key things was funny. I'm just looking at the two now. So from our first attempt to our second attempt, Phil had 89 damage on the first one and 90 on the second one. I mean,
Jesus.
that is
Okay,
consistent.
slow down, mate. Leave some damage for the rest of us.
So, Deathwalkers out there, are you also topping your group's DPS charts? If you do not know, you can too hire Phil, who can come over to your house and help you record them. Every now and then he misses something, and I have to just bring it up. But he's fairly consistent, except with heals. So, Phil with some very, very, very large damage, and he's just now, I would say, consistently our top damage dealer in our group.
Yep.
And it's a good feeling to have, especially when you know there's one main target in there that has to die. And it's so interesting because his numbers are huge, right? But I'm telling you right now, as I'm going through the scenario, I don't remember a lot of these times.
Yeah, I think the thing is to remember that his modified deck now is all green, right?
Yeah.
Other than his miss and the purple one. So even his small attacks of 3s are hitting for 4, and that adds up. Like it's almost the opposite effect of what I was saying. Is one of the things I'm struggling with mine is that most of mine are grey or red. So my 2s and 3s are probably hitting for 1s or 2s. So he's just kind of above average on all of his attack cards, and I think he's attacks most turns, other than when he's doing a bit of setup, and that's just gonna add up over time.
Did you say his deck is only green?
I'm pretty sure.
Does he not have zeros?
Oh no, yeah. So he might have zeros. Yeah. So there's no red. Yeah, there's no red.
I didn't want to get contacted over that and say, "Oh, your Deathwalkers is playing wrong."
Cheating. Yeah. No. It's so he's definitely has no red. I think he might have a couple of zeros.
And 6 crits and no misses.
Basically, it's like 80% chance to pull a crit anytime there's a big moment. So
actually, it's so funny. We were talking about this earlier because I pulled my miss. I don't know, relatively earlier as per I do every single time. I have not crit legit in a while. My last crit was a muddle crit, and I didn't actually crit. And after I missed, I cracked it, and I gave Phil my cards and said, "Can you shuffle these?" So he thought I was joking, and I said, "No, really, shuffle my modifier deck." So he shuffled it. I started pulling greens.
Oh, you was like a completely different character. I was like, "What? Whoa! This is crazy. Hitting for like 6s and 7s and 8s. Like this is it."
You know, when you go like you're playing an online game or you're playing something and you're just struggling, and then you go, "Mate, can you give me some help? Can you give me some tips?" That's what it was like. He gave me some tips and advice on how to play better.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden,
have you tried drawing better cards?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, hang on, I haven't really thought about it, but maybe I'll try that one. Whoa, these green ones make a massive difference.
Yeah, so yeah, he's designated shuffler of the modifier decks now.
Yep.
All right, sorry, a bit of a detour there. Damage taken, damage done. So he had 89. Oh, sorry, let's just do the second one. 90 damage, Geminate on 67. All right, so pretty good. You actually had 73 on the first attempt. So again, relatively close.
Yeah.
67 to and 73. Carbon on the Bone Shaper had 22 and then 20 on the second one. Really hard to get consistent damage with pets.
Especially against mobs with shields.
Yeah.
Because they're hitting so low and it's just really tricky. So.
And in the first one, I had 57, and on the second one, I had 67. Oh, that's right. You and I had 67 apiece. So
Okay.
we equaled on that. And then we had Mr. Deathwalker on 90 looking down on us.
Yeah, cool.
Damage taken, Deathwalker had 12. I'm only going to look at the second one now. So it took 12 damage. You took 40, and you mitigated 13 of it.
Jesus.
And 3 of them were card discard mitigation.
Mm.
All right. Our Bone Shaper took 16 and negated 6, and he negated 6.
And what did you?
No,
How did
it's
you
just
go?
Phil messed up something on one of these columns regarding you. You actually mitigated twice, but he's only totaled once. And then I took 47 and mitigated 14. It's so close. Just in damage taken from round 1, I took 68 and mitigated 29
In the first round
in the
through?
first run.
Wow.
68 damage. That's gross.
Yeah, we'll
That
be
was definitely the
exhausted.
shield
So
too.
yeah, definitely.
And then healing. I mean, 7 for Deathwalker, so he had a big one on you. Oh, he didn't actually heal you with that one.
No, he ended up healing Calvin on that one because that's when we burst into the room, and he chucked it on Calvin so that we could start hammering the orb.
He didn't write it down.
Okay.
So he doesn't count. He had a 3, a 2, and a 2. And the 2s would have been long rests, probably. You had 9 healing. Calvin had 18 healing, and I on the Drifter had 26. Because that time I ran with continuous health and crushing weight instead of.
Yeah, you were doing some
fast
really good heals
shoes.
on that one. Yeah, I remember that. That was good.
I wanted it for the second room top up.
Yeah.
To help out with that.
It was helpful.
Yeah, no, very helpful. So, how did you go with your thoughts on Scenario 21?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, it's always tricky when you fail because it's a sad feeling because you want to keep moving forward. I did manage to. One of the advantages of doing those both 2 in 1 go was that I was about 30 odd XP off leveling, or 26, I think it was. I got a really good chunk of that in that first one, but managed to get that, so that made it feel better. But yeah, as a scenario, I think it was built really well. It was very hard. Like I think the difficulty was at the kind of peak of what I think the difficulty in these type of scenarios should be, and that was good because it's a bit of a change, and it did make us think a little bit. Like it had some cool stuff in it. I think the boss worked pretty well, and yeah, some of those rooms just were really well designed. So no, I enjoyed that one. It definitely will be memorable, which is what you want in a boss scenario.
Definitely.
I think we will remember certain elements of things that happened in that scenario for a long time. So yeah.
I think in more than a lot of the previous ones that we've done, those middle rooms are generally the lackluster rooms where you're kind of like just getting from A to C and you need to get through B.
Yep.
The B room in this was really, really cool. It was just, it was such a simple kind of, I don't know, concept, but it was just done so well. And the way that the game narrated us through it as well, just, I don't know, it felt like an episode of like one of the Saw movies or something with these little tests along the way.
It's a good point, actually, because, yeah, like the B and C rooms, which are usually the middle parts, were the most interesting parts of the scenario, right? Like the orb room and the junk room were really, really cool. Like that junk room in itself, it's just, when we opened it up, it was just like, oh, okay, that's cool. And the more I looked at it, I'm like, this is going to be, like, all the different challenges that it brings up. Like, just how many cards we would have need to go through if we wanted to, like, clear our way through. Whereas that we managed to jump over most of it, and that's how we got through. But you need to have those cards. So, you're right. It definitely was had a really kind of good, interesting middle chunk.
And the surprises, I mean, normally because we're using Frosthaven Scenario Viewer to surprise us with what the next room and what the creatures are, it just really added it to it with this one because of how different it was. So it was a really nice surprise. It wasn't a bit of a groan. It was kind of like as I'm setting it up and looking at it to make sure I've got all the pieces there and then reading through what's happening, it's so cool to find a special rules box that changes the way the room's going to work. And watching everyone's faces around the table kind of mouth open going, I'm sorry, we have to do what? How does this work? It's so cool and very, very memorable. Wiping, honestly, this is coming from someone we've only wiped twice. It's not the end of the world. I enjoy repeating. There's so many caveats to this that I'm just hearing as I'm saying it, because it's not something that, if I had to do this 5 or 6 times, I'd just be done. But there is something about really challenging ones like this. Like, I agree with you. It's definitely one of the most challenging ones we've had, because it wasn't the full tank and spank and just, stats thing. It was playing around the different puzzles that it was throwing at us. That kind of situation, yeah, I enjoyed the repeat of going through and doing that again.
Yeah, look, it's hard because in hindsight, losing a failing mission isn't bad if you win straight after it. We're yet to do one where we failed and then failed it again, or not gone back to it, or not succeeded in a mission that night. So watch this space when that happens, because I'm sure it's going to happen in the 100 million scenarios that are involved in Frosthaven. Then we can report back on how we feel waiting a week.
You'll know because no episode will come out.
Yeah.
And then a 404 error or something like that?
Yep. That's
one of those comes up. But this was a very, very, very cool scenario. And I probably have no problem saying it was probably my favorite scenario that we've done so far.
Definitely one of the most interesting ones, yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely my favorite. The fact that it was a boss, whenever I think boss, I think of the two guys that were fighting each other, and they're just big, scary dudes with lots of health, with massive attacks, and you got to duck, dive, weave, do damage, mitigate damage, all that kind of stuff. The fact that this guy didn't move, he just kind of stood there and just made you lose a card, gain a card, summon snow imps. Like, it was kind of scary, and then once you take away the toys, it wasn't as scary. But it was a very cool and different way of doing a boss fight. And I very much enjoyed it. He wasn't really, that much of a fighter. So we head back to Frosthaven, and we actually reached another check mark in the Frosthaven campaign sheet. So we had another section to mark off. And this was one that's already there. It's the second part of Pinter and his chain quests. So
this is the explosions ones we talked about the other week, wasn't it?
Yeah, he wants us to go and do more explosion stuff. Look, I can't say his first one was is making me really want to go back and do the second one.
And he even the way he outlined it was like, oh, we've blown up these things and we've built these pillars, but there's these really angry people that aren't happy with us blowing up these pillars. Can you go protect the pillars? And I'm like, oh, I go protect the pillar quest. This doesn't sound exciting. I mean, it could be, right?
But it could be if they have bombs and they're trying to blow up our pillars.
Yeah, that could be interesting, actually. Yep. Maybe that's what's happening.
There you go. Maybe it's another party. We had an outpost event. Yes, do you remember our outpost event?
Of course I remember the outpost event.
So it was just basically a dude that wanted money.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, we just told him, we gave him some money and said it's fine, and he's like, I like the cut of your jib.
Yeah, he was like, you guys are pretty good guys.
Yeah,
I thought you guys were, the bad guys.
Yeah,
so that was good. Crafting, leveling up. Did anyone level up?
Yeah, I did. I did level up finally. Now this level up, and I know we've gone a bit long, so I don't want to kind of go too much into detail, and I have absolutely no evidence or data to back this up other than what I've theory crafted. But I feel like I've hit a level it's a game changer. I feel like I have a card that's a game changer. Now, I'm going to explain this in two different ways really quickly, because I think it also shows how much nobody actually understands how my character works.
Can I just say quickly, you did show me these cards.
That's what I'm going to talk about. So I opened the cards and I'm really excited. I was just like, oh my God. Now, this is what came out of it. I was reading it and I read the next one. I'm like, oh my God, okay, cool. Look at these cards, right? And I handed them to Deddy, and Deddy looked at the cards and, ongoing joke, because we talked about it earlier when I looked at some of his cards and we talked about good and bad and stuff, but he looked at these and this is just hot garbage, right? Like these don't do anything. Like, what are they? What do the words even mean? They're not even attacks or heals, or like one of them moves. So And I'm like, no. But this is like, I'm again doing this giant puzzle, right? And I finally have a piece that looks like it'll fit somewhere to make a whole bunch of other pieces fit somewhere. And now I'm really, really excited to do it. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's it. You exactly, and that's what I remember. I said after you looked at it, and then Phil also looked at it, and you guys were both just cracking out laughing. I have no idea why you're so excited, and all agree. I 100% agree on a pure in a vacuum evaluate cards. Those cards are terrible, right? But what they will do is finally allow me to start generating my own elements.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
And
that makes a lot of
that's
sense.
a massive. Half of my cards have these element costs that'll boost them, and some of them are on the burn cards. But even more specifically, some of my cards have, like my basic heal. If I can eat fire, also gives the person regenerate, and I get an XP. So the whole thing I complain about never being able to get XP, I can kind of slowly start generating that. But giving people regenerate on top of just healing them can be massive in the right kind of circumstance. So I'm really looking forward to it. There is a downside. It does either, depending which card I chose, which I think I know which one, but it'll do 2 damage to me anytime I want to do it. I did have the option of choosing the one that was deal 2 damage to an ally, but I feel like I'll just start to make a lot of enemies really quickly. So yeah, I will report back next week when I have an actual experience trying to make it work.
It sounds awesome. It sounds like from the very beginning everyone got to choose a puzzle, and you went, oh, I have this one, and you picked a jigsaw puzzle, and you got all the pieces, and you open the box and you put all the puzzle pieces out. And then at level 5, you unlocked eyeballs. And now you can see the puzzle as you're putting it together, and it's like made it so much better and so much easier.
Yeah, it's a good point. It is actually a little bit, and I was hoping this was the case as it went through, that using your puzzle analogy, it's like opening up a jigsaw puzzle and there's been pieces missing. So this will look cool when I get these pieces, but I don't have them yet. And I think I'm getting one of the key pieces that's going to be a staple. So if you're playing the Geminate out there and you know that I'm right, then yes. If you're playing the Geminate and you know that I'm very wrong, then sad.
Yeah.
So, but either way, I will also know whether I'm right or wrong after our next game.
I do. I wonder how many people are playing the Geminate and following along with you, and just hearing your experiences, because I guarantee the majority of people are probably further ahead than us. So it'd be kind of cool to see your journey and your growth, and whether or not you come to kind of those crossroads and milestones that they did as well, which is pretty cool.
So yep. So really excited about that.
Well, that about wraps up this episode of AmDirt. If you would like to reach out to us about anything regarding Frosthaven or anything else really, you can contact us via email at contact@rollingterribly.com, even if it's just to say Gaz sucks.
Don't
you can
say
all...
that would just be mean. Why would you just do that? Like, at least put something in there that's useful.
Just do it. I'll reply.
Don't create a thing. Don't.
It's just the next segment's literally going to be, so the following people have contacted us to say that Gaz sucks.
Yeah, don't. My
Just
self-esteem cannot take that hit, okay? Random people on the internet I don't know telling me I suck. That's like that's the last straw.
Okay. You heard it. You can also DM me on Reddit. My username is D3TT, so det, and nothing you say will go unnoticed. We love what we've created here and look forward to many more discussions regarding Frosthaven and other games in the future. As always, I've been your host, Deddy, and joining me has been Gaz.
And remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it doesn't matter how many times the scenario takes you, right? You'll get there in the end.
There's no rules or anything like that. It's just fight the boss. But it does talk about the boss's you know how each boss you fight, they use the same boss deck, and there's boss special 1 and boss special 2.
Oh yeah.
The specials is what I'm about to read out to you. So boss special 1 character recovers 1 card from their lost pile.
Oh, okay.
Then the Prince of Frost performs Heal X, targeting characters at a range of 5, where X is specified by the stat card. Alright, so it's a heal specified by the stat card. Then the Prince of Frost summons 1 Snow Imp. Oh.
They have to find a way. Weasel their way in somewhere.
It is normal for 2 characters or elite for 3 or 4. So that's his first special.